Now, so much for China treating us with more friendliness and respect under this Albanese government. And so much for the fools who tried to tell us that China isn't that bad. We should just shut up. We can get along, sell more stuff. Today we learn that China has sentenced to death an Australian democracy activist, Yang Hengjun, a former Chinese citizen. China accuses him of spying without ever publicly presenting any evidence. As evidence instead that it's tortured him. It's held him for years now. Former Foreign Minister Penny Wong was cross.
The Australian government is appalled at this outcome. We will be communicating our response in the strongest terms. As a first step, I have directed my secretary to summon China's ambassador to Australia to express our objection.
Joining me is the country's top foreign affairs writer, Greg Sheridan of The Australian. Greg, China says it's going to commute the sentence to life imprisonment if Yang Hengjun behaves himself over the next 2 years. But really, your verdict and what it did?
Well, Andrew, this is China, and I'm astonished people are surprised about it. This is the Communist Party of China. It shows complete and absolute contempt for Australia. This is an Australian citizen who has done nothing worse than criticise the Chinese Communist Party and the government. He's a writer and a dissident, and not only has he got this insane sentence, the death sentence now apparently to be commuted to life imprisonment, at no point has the Chinese government honoured its international treaty obligation to allow Australian consular officials to attend the trial or anything like that. So they've flouted their treaty obligations. They couldn't care less about human rights, and this is a deliberate statement. So they let Cheng Lei go free. Thank God. I'm so pleased. And now they're saying, OK, we can give you something and we can smack you around the face as well. And it's completely arbitrary. Could be, you know, if you or I were silly enough to go there, could be you or me.
I wouldn't now. And if I was Chinese born and an Australian citizen, I most definitely would not go. But what does it say about a relationship now with China?
Well, they realised that when they were naked in their bullying, it was counterproductive for them. And all through that period, it was obvious that at some point they'd get sick of that phase and they'd move into charming us again. But it means nothing. Underneath the substance, the cyber attacks are relentless, the attempted political interference is relentless, the military moves, as they showed by pointing that sonar at our sailors, are relentless, the stealing of all our industrial and military secrets is relentless. And what I think is very dangerous is that the Albanese government, except for Penny Wong's very fine statement today, and she deserves all praise for that, the Albanese government generally now won't speak in a disobliging way about China because it thinks that having reset the relationship with China is its only single remaining foreign policy achievement. But as a result, a lot of Australians, including a lot of business folks, of course, think that everything's hunky-dory in China and that we should just go back to having a normal relationship. But they are a nation whose central strategic interests are inimical to our own.
Well, you say, you praised Penny Wong's statement. It's true, she dragged in the Chinese ambassador. But I have to say, while she said that the sentence was appalling, she said nothing about anything about the nature of China, its system, and say the man's innocent and all that. She could have gone to town and she did not. She's appalling and she wants an explanation from China. There is no explanation. She should be stripping pieces off him. But listen, there are now 3 wars that the West has been dragged into, right? Ukraine, Israel, and the war to preserve shipping lanes in the Red Sea, which goes into the Suez Canal, very important shipping lane. Houthi rebels have been firing missiles and rockets at ships there, anything really, hit a British tanker. On Friday, the US and Britain attacked targets in Yemen, Syria, and Iraq. They were all being used by Islamist groups backed by Iran, one of which had killed 3 US servicemen in an attack last week. This is in retaliation for that. And it's done that, but it doesn't seem to be working much, Greg. I mean, I saw one target in Iraq. I wonder, only, 16 dead of this really important target. And I wonder whether it's because President Biden said, he gave him a week's notice, almost a week's notice, and said the day before the attacks were going to hit targets in Iraq and Syria. Would that have anything to do with it?
Oh, well, you're absolutely right, Andrew. I mean, I think this is essentially a symbolic retaliation by Biden. So Biden deserves high marks for his solidarity with Israel. He's much better than the Democratic Party. It may be because he was never educated at Harvard, he still works out that if an Islamist death cult attacks a liberal democracy, you go with a liberal democracy. However, his policy on Iran has been an unmitigated disaster. He just wanted to reverse Donald Trump's policy, and he spent nearly 3 years trying to woo Iran into a nuclear deal which was meant to be a détente. Now, this has freed up, he hasn't enforced sanctions on Iran. It's freed up $100 billion worth of funds for Iran, which they've used to build up their military and support terrorism. And now, before this retaliation, Iran-backed militia groups had attacked American targets, not just Israeli or international targets, American targets, 160 times. Now, finally, they got a drone through the American defences and killed 3 American soldiers. And so Biden was forced to respond. And his message is, I don't want to escalate, and I'm giving you maximum warning, get out of the way. I'm just going to, bomb an empty field or bomb a rock or something. But I don't think that cuts much mustard with Iran.
I've never heard Iran say, we're going to attack an American target. We don't want to escalate. We're giving you warning. We won't do it to you personally, we'll do it to someone else. We don't want to escalate. But all that we hear from the Biden administration, we don't want to escalate.
Yeah, if you project
we won't
weakness,
attack Iran itself.
Yeah, if you project weakness. So supporting Israel, he projected strength by deploying 2 aircraft carriers. But in this retaliation, he's projected weakness. And if you project weakness, that's the lesson your enemies take.
But I'll tell you what, Donald Trump, for all his many failings, one thing that made him particularly effective internationally as a deterrent was that he seemed as mad as a cut snake. You didn't know what the hell he might do to you.
Absolutely.
And that made you be very cautious. Good warning. Greg Sheridan, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Andrew.